Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Pomey, radio host of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show on WQE 99.1 FM. I'm here today at BMO Field for tonight's CFL rematch from last Sunday between the 4-4 Calgary Stampeders and the 4-4 Toronto Argonauts. I have a special guest with me. He is Ben Grant. He is the color analyst for the Toronto Argonauts on TSN 1050, and we're going to ask Ben his thoughts on tonight's matchup with Calgary on 5 days' notice. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great. Good to talk to you, Chris.
What are your thoughts on this rematch tonight, especially on a short week, 5 days, and just thoughts on what happened Sunday night in that fourth quarter with Calgary?
I like the fact that I know there's limited rest, and that's not ideal ever, but at least this time you've got both teams in the same boat. So it's not like it's one team with 5 days rest and another team coming off a bye week. So it's even. They're both dealing with some problems, and they both got travel involved, obviously both coming from Calgary. So I don't think there's an edge there. Last week's game was a little bit of a surprise to me because seeing the Argos come out as they did, I really felt like they were going to run away with it in the second half, and we'd see a lot of that ground game that they've been known for this year. And they're so good at running the football when they devote themselves to it. And I think that's probably what we're going to get a lot of here tonight. I think the Argos have an edge running the football. I think they really have an edge in that D-line, O-line matchup on both sides of the ball. And I think they'll probably try their best to exploit that tonight.
Cameron Dukes was 18 for 27, I believe, for 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did carry the ball 12 times for 95 yards. Just wanted your thoughts on his performance and why the Argos are starting Nick Arbuckle tonight against Calgary here at BMO.
I think Dukes had a really nice first half. He struggled a little bit in the second half, but there were also some pretty poor conditions there, and he just missed on a couple of balls too. And so he's got that in him, and I loved the way that he was running the football. I thought that really added something, especially in that first half. I guess he's a bit banged up this week. I know he's going to be a game time decision tonight, and so with that being the case, I think Coach Dinwiddie probably just decided, let's go with Nick Arbuckle. It's a bit of an edge too, because Calgary didn't get to play Arbuckle at all last week, and so they know him. They obviously are very familiar with him as a quarterback and what he is, but those players on that team hadn't had a chance to really see him play in person, and so maybe that's a bit of an edge too while Cameron Dukes fully recovers from that leg injury.
Thoughts on what are some keys to an Argo win tonight, and what happened in that fourth quarter? The offense to me looked like it was stagnated in the fourth quarter against Calgary, but you got to give Calgary credit too for coming back from 16 points.
Yeah, I do. I think, Calgary played that really well, and they had a couple things work their way. There was, a couple, you could point out 2 or 3 plays that completely turned that game on its head, and so that's something to consider as well. But, that's going to happen sometimes. The elements get involved. That stuff does happen. And I think tonight the key is going to be, if they can avoid turning the football over, they can play smart football and really control that time of possession. I think they're going to wear down the Calgary Stampeders defense. I think they're going to be able to keep putting up points. I really like Toronto's chances tonight in this one.
How important is it to get the win tonight, to get back to over 500 at 5-4, and then having a bye week next week, and possibly, who knows, number 12 Chad Kelly in the next couple weeks?
I think any win is a big deal. You're trying to keep pace with Ottawa and Montreal in the East. That's tough. They keep winning football games, and so you want to keep winning. Obviously, it's not life and death. Like, they can be 4-5, and that's okay. I think preseason, my thought for these first 9 games was 4-5, 5-4, somewhere around there is good. You hold your ground, and then we'll see what happens if Chad Kelly returns to the starting lineup soon.
And what are your thoughts on Calgary? The opponent Calgary tonight here at BMO Field. You expect to see something different from the Stampeders, especially on a short week?
I think they'll probably handle Arbuckle a little differently than they did Dukes. I think the strategy, like, they played a lot of press man in the second half against Dukes. I don't know if we're going to see that against Arbuckle, but I don't know what we'll see. I think they did a really nice job containing Jannary and Grant. There was a real focus and emphasis on special teams play. Outstanding work by them. That's a well-coached team. But I wouldn't do too much differently because, again, you're coming off a win. It's the same opponent. You don't want to completely flip everything on its head, but they'll have a few wrinkles and a few things that maybe Toronto, that they think they can catch Toronto off guard with.
How important is it to get the Argos receivers going, especially Daniels and Coxie?
the key is to get them both going in the same week. Like, we've had games where Tavares is involved and Coxie isn't. And last week, Coxie was a huge part of the offense, and Tavares wasn't. I think he only had 2 targets in the game, I believe, both coming late. But yeah, Tavares is one of the best players on the team. He has to be part of this offense. And so I think Nick Arbuckle is going to make that a point of emphasis. He's a veteran quarterback. He knows where the ball has to be distributed. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tavares and Coxie both have a big game today.
Any chance we could see Brian Scott in here at any point too?
Maybe. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say with that, because I'm surprised that we haven't to this point. But again, I'm not there all the time. I'm not in meeting rooms, and I don't see everything that goes on. Having seen Brian Scott on the practice field and the limited time that he's been out here with game experience, I thought he's looked really good. But for whatever reason, they haven't gone that direction yet. I think they really like what they've got in Dukes and Arbuckle, and so the key will just be getting them to have a big game tonight against Calgary.
And before we wrap this up, Ben, thoughts on the late, great Pete Martin as a Argo linebacker and a longtime broadcaster with this organization?
I only have positive things to say about Pete Martin. He was the voice that I grew up with. He was one of the first people to teach me about football, listening to those broadcasts back in the early 80s. And as a teacher and coach himself, a guy that I really have a special place in my heart for, and what he was able to do for this Argos organization. And you said it, like, player and broadcaster and builder. And through decade after decade after decade, he is one of the most important people in this club's illustrious history. And to see him honored like he was truly special. And so I'm really glad I was here for it. And I'm, with Pete passing so recently, it was so great that he was able to find out about his enshrinement as an all-time Argo before passing, because I think too often that happens posthumously. And for him to know that before passing, I think was a real tribute to this organization and how well they did in making sure that he was honored that way.
And finally, Ben, what time is your pregame show with Mike Hogan tonight on TSN 1050?
You can catch our pregame show at 7 o'clock, kickoff, of course, 7:30. But yeah, tune in wherever you are in the world. If you're a Toronto area, then you can tune in locally, car or radio at home. And otherwise, you can find us digitally. Just go to TSN and you can button click from there to find our broadcast.
And when's your next episode of the X and O's Argos podcast?
X's and Argos always goes right after the game, so we'll have our post-game reaction immediately following the broadcast. You can search us up on YouTube or find us on Twitter as well.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ben, and have a great game call tonight with Mike Hogan here at BMO Field, 7:30 kickoff, Calgary, Toronto. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks, anytime, Chris.